Hello, everybody. You're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. Doing a little late night chat here. Thank you for rewatching this. There's no one here yet, so if you're watching this part, it's likely that you're rewatching this live stream. So I appreciate that, and I hope you're doing well. Just going to hang out and see if anybody shows up tonight. For some of you, this will likely be the first time you've seen the new shave. Hope you like it. Hello, Michigan Susan and Cheryl. How are you guys doing? Don't know where I tapped that. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. What are you guys up to tonight? What time is it where you're at? It's 11:30 here at night. Made me decide to shave. I've had it for a couple years. This is how I had it before that for a long time. Lately, it was long enough to start tickling me on the back of the neck. Almost 1:30 where Cheryl is, 2:30 where Michigan, Susan. All right. Well, thanks for dropping in so late, guys. It was just starting to bug me. Sometimes it would blow all the way up in my face and stuff like that. I want to be camping and running around in the woods this summer, so I just decided it'd be one less hassle to worry about. Where I work, it's just easier not to worry about it. So while I like having it, it'll grow back pretty fast when I choose to have it again, and life is long. So figured I'd just go without for now. Yeah. I mean, I always made sure to stay clean with my beard, but it's less hassle to stay clean this way. Yeah, there's just less to worry about, and I'm getting busier and stuff with the channel and with summer coming up. So one less thing to worry about is a good thing right now. Cheryl's son is being kept down by the man. And he feels the oppression. Yeah, well, what does he do? What kind of work is it? Because I'm lucky. I work in food service, but partly the way we do it and just run with lots of bearded guys. But everybody's okay with it. We don't get complaints or anything. So I've found manager at McDonald's. Yeah, McDonald's has those kinds of corporate rules. It's always long female hairs that end up in food. I've never seen a beard hair or a man's any hair in food. It's always something long, curly, and blonde. But that's not to say it can't happen or doesn't happen. Lost half his beard to a bonfire. Well, that's the other thing. A couple fire starting videos ago, I definitely singed it a little bit. I smelled it whenever I took a shower. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about singeing my beard, but there are things against it. Somebody can grab it in a fight. You could catch it on fire. And if you ever needed to put a gas mask on, you'd have to at least have what you see here cut down. Cut his eyebrows. Wow. Yeah, beard masks. I mean, I would be okay with that, but I would sort of hope that everybody would be wearing full hair and beard masks, because it's just, otherwise it's sexual discrimination. Oh, just the hair. That's good. Yeah, bonfires can be tricky things. Never know if the wind's going to whip around and push all that flame toward you. Yeah, I imagine you would all have to wear stuff in a food factory setting. Oh, burning brush. Yeah, that'll do it. So what have you guys been working on lately? I've been working on, I bought some more plants for my little container garden and a bunch of more dirt and stuff like that. I know Michigan Susan is clearing property and burning brush, trying to get caught up on videos. Yeah, I've been pretty behind on other people's videos. I was watching a lot for a while there, and then just been so busy I have fallen behind on other people's videos. I try to stay caught up on at least my core circles videos and comment and be back and forth with them. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of back channel time whenever I have the moment to do it. Susan put up rice. That's awesome. I've been meaning to get a little bit more food lately. Been trying to think of what to get to fill some gaps. I've got plenty of rice and beans for now, but I really want to fill some of the nutrient or protein gaps or things like that. Oh, okay. Oh, your first VR? What was that about? NWA Prepper. Yep, that was the one that I was doing my container. I mean, I've been meaning to do plant something, but he's the one that really motivated me to do the video by that, by tomorrow. So that was partly why I did that, planting the onions. But I just happened to notice that those onions were sprouting, so I figured that'd be a good thing to go ahead and do. Store the salt in with the rice and with spice packets. That's a really good idea. I like that. I put TP in with a lot of stuff just because it often will fill out the container pretty well. Depending on what's in there, you just sort of stick it in a corner or something like that, flatten it down a little bit. Oh, that's cool, Cheryl. Yeah, I like NWA Prepper. He's a good guy. Shrink wrap, nice. Oh, that's cool. I'm sort of jealous of everybody over sort of in that direction. A lot of people over on the East Coast, a lot of the prepper channels are on the East Coast. A lot of preppers are on the West Coast, but a lot of them don't make channels and stuff like that. So it'd be a lot easier to meet up with the popular YouTube channels if you were over in east of the Mississippi. Oh, okay. Yep. I use a food saver for a lot of stuff. I use Mylar for sensitive things, but because we rotate a lot of our food, we go through it pretty quickly, as opposed to people who have things for 10 years or something like that. I can't really think of anything that we would not eat within 10 years. Maybe a MRE or a Mountain House or something like that. But even that, I'm probably going to end up eating it or doing something with it before it expires. Yep, I like them too. Yeah, Arkansas does have a big network. Just browsing YouTube a little bit, seeing what's out there tonight. I noticed that Hoople's cat started a new series. I haven't had the time to look at it yet, but it is something that he was asking for input about recently. And it looks like he has started a slow collapse series. If I was running this on OBS, I'd go ahead and have us watch it right now. But unfortunately, we're just doing a regular YouTube webcam stream. Yep, toothpaste is a good one. I'm surprised that he went with the, what was it, Colgate and not salt and soda. But, I mean, toothpaste is toothpaste. Salt and soda is improvised toothpaste. So, yeah, freeze-dried is expensive. I'm not a big broccoli person, but I think for the freeze-dried or dehydrated stuff, I like powdered eggs. I don't like powdered eggs, but eggs are one of the things that if you don't have chickens, which I'll usually have chickens around, there's so many chickens around here that usually you can probably get eggs for free just by asking around on Facebook who has more eggs than they know what to do with. But I like the powdered egg. Eggs have a lot of nutrients. They're very good energy and stuff like that. And if you have a lot of beans and rice, you have your basic other macronutrients taken care of. Eggs are just a really nice gap filler for me. Hey, Prescott. Yeah, Ryan, I know. It's still sad for me every once in a while, but beauty of it is it keeps trying to grow back. So all I have to do is stop fighting it and it returns. There is a beard, though. It's just a shadow of its former self. We have a dehydrator. It's an old Mr. Coffee dehydrator. Things like, it looks like it's from the 80s, but it's probably from the 90s or something like that. But it's been in storage for at least a decade or something. And my family pulled it out, and they've been dehydrating fruit, and it gets them crispy dry. So how are you doing tonight, Ryan? Aside from mourning the glorious beard, loss of a fallen brother. Canner and a dehydrator. I think we probably have a canner. We have pressure cookers and stuff like that, but I'm not sure we have a... No, I think we have the whole dome lid canner. Just got back from Vegas. Yeah, your beard is quite voluptuous. Especially, I'm sure, if you go without tending it for a few days. In Vegas for business, or just go hit the casinos every few days? I saw your email. I haven't had a chance to really respond to a lot of emails. Been touch and go constantly for the last couple days. Ooh, drive race cars. That sounds like fun. Took your dad to drive some race cars in Vegas for his birthday. Hoople showed how to use Mylar bags with O2 and sealing with a flat iron. Yeah, I started watching that, and then I ran out of time to finish it, or fell asleep because I watch videos late at night, not because his videos are boring, which they're not boring. So, hey, Wandering Marine Veteran, how you doing? But yeah, I've tried the Mylar with the flat iron. You have to be careful because that's pretty hot. But it works really well. Also, I haven't seen a lot of people be very specific about how to do it without creating any wrinkles, because even a single wrinkle can defeat the whole Mylar seal. So, hey, Wandering Ranger. $7:42 a.m. Well, yeah, sometimes I like to do the late night ones. I also do what we would call early morning here in my time zone. But yeah, I like talking to I've got a couple of European friends on here, so I like to scatter out my chat times. But yeah, I've often, if you actually, you have to be careful, and I suggest when you use Mylar, when you use anything, don't just throw them in buckets and then throw those buckets in storage right away. You want to wait at least a good few hours and give those things a chance to suck air back in, because I've actually done that. And if you have even just the tiniest wrinkle in the edge of your seal, molecules of air, even just a few at a time, can be getting through there. And it might take even 12 hours for it to visibly uncrinkle, unseal from a vacuum, so you can tell that it's actually expanding again. But it actually, you need to inspect your preps within a short period of time once you've stored them to make sure that something didn't fail, because I try to be careful. Maybe I'm just not very good at it, but there's a noticeable rate of failure with those things. That's part of why I like the Food Saver ones, because they're the exact width and they're all basically designed to go in there flat and seal up. Whereas with the Mylar, almost no matter how you do it, even if you put it in the Food Saver, depending on how big your pouch is, you're almost going to be guaranteed to end up with a wrinkle. So one of my favorite methods has always been using an actual clothing flat iron without the steam, obviously, and just getting my Mylar full, getting it nice and flat across a wooden cutting board with an old flat towel or shirt or something across that, and then just running your hand across it, just doing this until it's all perfectly flat and on there, and then just running the iron across it as flat as you can, and just having a bunch of O2 packets in there. Yeah, the jar attachment. I've wanted to get one of those and try it out. I probably should, since I have the channel, just to really see how it works and if it's worth it. Yeah, Cheryl, I should do a video. The only problem is I'm not confident enough about it, because I do end up, I almost feel like it's just sort of a matter of chance, because just the slightest roll in that Mylar and it creates a wrinkle. But it's hard to, if you sometimes I do have to do it a few times just to get a good storage item. So but you know what, I do like doing videos where I show how much you're likely to fail with some things, like the fire starting videos. It's a little embarrassing whenever people sort of latch on to the fact that you can't start a fire, but I like doing a fire starting video where the wood is wet and it's windy, and it's actually difficult because so many people think that it's easy to start fires. And as a Boy Scout, I can tell you, we had some nights where we were miserable because we never got a fire started, and we weren't going to spend that long working on it. Oh, Michigan's using your jar attachment sucked up cocoa powder. Yeah, powders are really sort of a difficult thing, because no matter what you're putting them into, Mylar or Food Saver bags or whatever, the granules sort of want to suck towards the vacuum. And that definitely tends to cause failure in seals and stuff. Yeah, exactly. I think that a lot of people watch videos and they think that if they watch it enough times, that will give them an edge whenever they go and try to do it. And that's true to a certain degree if you're really good at visualizing and imagining the hands-on. But a lot of the things that we talk about are the kinds of things that when you get there, you get stiff or sore from doing it, like in your muscles very quickly, or you get very frustrated whenever it doesn't work the first few times. And it's the kind of thing where being frustrated makes it harder and harder to do properly. And just stuff like that, to where like starting a fire with a ferro rod or things like that. If you haven't practiced that, if you've just watched a lot of videos, that can be really hard, especially if the stuff is wet, or the wind is blowing everything around, because most of the stuff that's small enough for a spark to catch is small enough to just blow away before you can do anything about it. So exactly, Wandering Ranger. I think it's better to show failures than to give people a false sense of security. Because, you know, if a person's on a channel showing you that they're doing something wrong, then maybe it's a good reason to ask if you would also be doing that wrong. Yep, it's true, Susan. Reality sucks sometimes. Making fire isn't as easy as we've gotten accustomed to. I mean, it's a good idea to carry a lighter and fire starting fuel and stuff like that. That way, that's never a problem. But it's true. I mean, a lot of people haven't been in a very frustrating situation outside of like traffic or normal social situations in quite a while. Thanks, HDP. You have a good night and rest well. But, yep, thanks for dropping in, man. You have a good night. And just as Hooples was going to have a cat nap. Darn. Well, thanks for dropping in, Hooples. I'm glad we caught you. How you doing tonight? We're talking about frustration, and here you are. We're talking about how it's good to show failures in videos because people don't appreciate being stuck in a frustrating situation. We were talking about you earlier in your bucket video. Which was a good video. Exactly. If you're going to prep a flint rod, you might as well prep a couple of lighters, which is true. It's a very good idea. Just to have the things to get you done and out of it really quick. Don't be sorry, Hooples. It was a good video. Bucket videos are always necessary. 15-year-old Bic, and it still worked? But a lot of people are used to watching YouTube videos and watching people do flint and steel video fires, or even doing flint and steel fires in their backyard where it's not windy or whatever. And that's pretty different from the wet, barky wood that you found out in the woods because you didn't have the time to find the really good stuff or whatever. Wow, that's pretty cool. 15-year-old Bic that worked. I've heard people suggest that they won't even last a year or two, which that's not true. So right on. Waypoint Survival. I'll have to check that out. But for instance, I was doing that bow drill video quite a while back, and it is very frustrating to be sitting there and running a bow drill and having a hard time figuring out what you're doing wrong. Found the perfect bushcraft. And just you're getting tired, you're getting sore and stuff like that. And I'm imagining that I'm in a life and death situation where I've got no other fire starting implement but a bow drill, and I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I literally spent about 2 hours one day trying to get it down, and that's an unacceptable amount of time if you're running out in the woods trying to survive with your inch bag or whatever have you. Never tried the bow drill, never will. Well, that's the thing, is it's like, I do it because it's just one of those things that it's a preppery thing, but at the same time, it's like so far out in the weeds, you should have 1,000 different ways to start a fire before you end up needing to use a bow drill. Yeah, Cheryl, I think the one that I saw, he had like 11 ways to start a fire, and then it got child blocked, so he ended up redoing it because he was so concerned about the algorithm. If you're alone and naked and have to use a bow drill, it's a big sign you should have prepped and not just planned on being a bushcrafter, basically, is what I think Hooples is saying. He didn't add the bushcrafter part, but yeah, exactly. Reading glasses work. Mike over at the Watchman News is sending me a Fresnel lens or two. So, and Evil Rick is sending me some natural English flint that he has in his area. So I'm going to have all kinds of different ways to start fires. Oxyacetylene torches. Ryan Just Yet, Prescott Caliber Club says. Full Spectrum Survival said what? 5 different ways to start a fire. Okay. But yeah, Ryan, I carry a blowtorch. I've done a lot of irrigation and construction and stuff. And for PVC and ABS, you're using a blowtorch. And it's just really handy to have around. Corsair Trainers makes fun of me because I'm always talking about them. But you can use a blowtorch to braise wet wood and literally just bake the steam right off of it within a matter of seconds. And then you've got wood that's pretty much ready for a good fire. And then you're using it to get your fire started or whatever. And you know what? If it turns out to be too wet and rainy, it's also a propane stove. In honor of Uncle Al, road flare. I picked him up. The reason I almost always do Uncle Al videos is because he almost always has recommendations that should go into videos. So, yep, Cheryl, I think we all should practice the methods we have available. Now, I'm not super sure on the road flare. I mean, it's redundant whenever I'm carrying a propane torch because a propane, blue bottle of propane is just a whole lot of energy. You know, if you're using it very efficiently, you're starting fires, you're cooking food, you're doing work, you're defeating locks, all kinds of stuff with that. And the road flare, while it produces that steady hot flame for a long period of time without having to worry about it, basically you're throwing it into the middle of some wet wood knowing that it's going to get it going. See you, Ranger. Thanks for dropping in. Work beckons. All right. Well, thanks for dropping in. It was good chatting with you. I am drinking a strawberry lemon locally brewed cider. Breweries within gunshot range of me. A breech pen. Is that a camera for your barrel? Like a gunsmithing tool? Little pen that goes in to look in your barrel? Oh, okay. Anyway, I just sort of wonder, I'm hesitant to ever doubt Uncle Al because he doesn't really talk about stuff that he doesn't know about, as far as I know. Well, when it comes to practical advice. But I mean, it's not exactly so light compared to my torch that a couple of these would replace it. I'm not going to pop this off right now, but it is true. If you get one of these and you can stick it in the fire, I just wonder, would you have to keep adjusting it? I guess I've never really paid attention to how these burn. Do they burn down the side or do they burn continuously out the end? Anyways, as Cheryl said, I think it was Cheryl. Yep, we should practice with the methods we have available. That's why I picked up the torch, to see if it really is a good option. For a car, they're smart, says Hooples. Yeah. Oh, yes, I should do that. I don't have any trolls, so I haven't had to have any moderators yet. I think I had one person that I have Uncle Al as a moderator, and he's a good one. Similar to a road flare, but on stair. Oh, okay. Cut chains and steel. Not as cheap as rope. Okay. So almost like a, what do you call it? A thermal lance or something like that, but disposable version, sort of like a merger between this and that. Probably just a big old beefy road flare with a mean old cutting flame on the end. I hope it's shaped like the space shuttle. Okay. Unfortunately, I have no screen sharing options here, but yeah, it's a big old beefy solid fuel torch. $55 each. Susan has an auto escape tool, cuts seat belts and breaks windows. It's probably that little hammer guy with the ball peen or the arrow point hammer on one side with the hook underneath on the other. Interesting. Interesting, yeah. Yeah, Prescott is a good one for that. Hooples, I don't know if you've linked up with him yet, but Ryan there at Prescott Caliber Club is opening a really cool preppers outfitter, an outfitter store, essentially. It's a gun club, obviously, gun experience, gun purchasing club, things like that. But he's going to do a lot of prepper-centric gear and things like that. He's been talking to me a little bit about it, and it sounds like a really good venture. He's going to do some real estate and just a lot of different things to try to cover a lot of bases for preppers. Yes, he who dies with the most preps wins. Oh, yes, Hooples. It's all right. You've handled guns in the past. You shouldn't be as scared as your fellow demographics. But yes, Ryan does a lot of quick gun shooting videos, gun porn. Susan, it's good to have your preps hidden or discreet. My family's all on board, but and most of the people who ever come over are Mormon anyways when it comes to the family, so it's really not a concern to have buckets of food sitting around. But you know what, if anybody comes around and you don't really necessarily want them to remember that you have a pile of things that in a future situation they might remember you having. So discretion is the better part of valor. Oh yes, I think you might have mentioned that before. Your husband. There are a fair few women out there, and a few of them are subbed to my channel, that their husbands aren't on board with it. It sort of threatens them to a certain degree. But you got him collecting. Collecting guns is, the first step. I didn't read that comment at first, Ryan. My wife doesn't allow regular porn. I forgot my gun porn comment, and so originally so your wife only allows irregular porn? That's an interesting thing for you to share. But with the gun porn figured in, that makes a lot more sense. I'm getting to you, Hooples. So yeah, I disguise the extent of my preps, and to a certain degree, I don't let my family know everything that I do, just because they would probably judge me and how invested in it I am. They think it's great that I care about it and stuff, but they want me to be caring about the here and now, not necessarily caring about all the potential situations that could happen. Yeah, Ryan, I caught that. That was funny. So yeah, Hooples, the Mormon thing. It's not super pervasive. She didn't like the thermoses? That's just a good, handy thing. You guys can go on picnics now and all kinds of stuff. How much were they? You got the 40 ounces, probably at least 40 Canadian each. Yeah, 15. Yeah, the sort of not very nice 32 ounces were about $33 American here. So shoes. Exactly. Food and ammo. That sounds sensible. He should be happy about that. Not spending your money on shoes and things like that. But food that you'll eat, hopefully. I don't know if you're eating doing prep what you eat kind of thing, but we eat a lot of rice and stuff here. So we have no problem going through the rice that I prep up. My family loves that I bring bulk rice home so they never have to worry about it, and it's always coming in about as cheap as it's going to get. So you accidentally bought 200. You just accidentally add that 0 on there or something. So yeah, obviously plenty of Mormons are complacent with their preparedness or whatever, but my experience growing up is that my whole family always had 72-hour kits. We've always had or aimed to have the 6 months worth of food, and which, that comes and goes and stuff, because like I said, a lot of it is stuff that we eat. So depending on how complacent we've gotten in the past, that fluctuates. Hey, Chris, how you doing? She walked in on the act. Hooples was shame buying prepper stuff, and his better half walked in on him. I know, yes. I've lost my better half right here. Susan, I grew up Mormon. My family, most of them are still Mormon. And I grew up very devout. And I think that it's one of the better religions, especially to raise a child in. I think that they produce a lot of good people. And when it comes to a lot of doctrine and stuff, I don't disagree with it as much as I do with a lot of other things. But no, I do not practice any established religion. Known Mormons. Probably they would, but I'm not sure that among the general populace they understand the food storage thing so much, unless they know Mormon friends who are pretty open about having so much food around, or they're just used to them having full pantries. mostly that's what it would come down to, because most Mormons are the friend where everybody goes to get food whenever they're all hanging out and stuff. So I think from that perspective, everybody would be used to looking to them. But it's not the kind of thing where I think your average Joe would say, all right, who's the list of Mormons? Because they're the ones who will have food. Yeah, you like the Mormon missionaries that came around? They're generally always good guys, and depending, I mean, they should, if they're doing it right, they should be very non-aggressive and just very friendly and just a good chat to have. Hello, Macho Nacho, ¿cómo estás? I've lost all of my Spanish. I'm sorry. I tried. The gears turned and came up with nothing. Anyways, the basis of the Mormon prepping hooples is sort of along the lines of some other things. So they call it the words of wisdom, which are basically suggestions from the modern day patriarchy of the church for things for people to follow. And that's including things like sexual purity stuff, the caffeine, like why a lot of devout Mormons don't drink coffee, alcohol, things like that. But a lot of that stuff, obviously, you have a whole spectrum of people who don't observe some of those principles or doctrines, and the prepping thing is part of it. But I think a lot of it just stems from biblical passages, from being prepared and things like that, and to a certain degree, Revelations things. The modern, close to end times is a small part of the doctrine, so being prepared for that kind of thing is part of what they look at whenever they're doing the prepping. But like Cheryl says, a lot of churches don't. A lot of churches don't push. The bishop of a local church may not really push that kind of thing a lot. It really just sort of comes down to an individual. They call it a ward, the division of the church at the local level. Your congregation is called a ward, and a bishop presides over that, and they may or may not push that side of it a lot. But then you get others, for instance, in the town where I lived before this, which is pretty far out there, it's a pretty small town, they have a pretty well set up ham network and color coding system so that the leader of individual, like the young men's leader, can drive around a neighborhood and check the addresses of known church members for the color and number code on their door to check on how everybody is, what they need, without actually having to come knock on doors. So they actually have a very well set up system that they can implement if they're interested in doing it, to where they actually have a top-down system where everybody in a ward will be checked up on by known people in a top-down system. But that's only if they're actually implementing it. As for Susan, what you said, do they say yes or no to medical marijuana? I heard that they are really starting to come around to it, especially because of the opiate crisis. I think that things have been said basically that if it is a viable option to you, the church no longer has a stance against it, especially because it's a lot of that comes, they just go with the law of the land kind of thing. So given that that's no longer just, it's illegal, that's their stance, is basically if it's legal for you and it's something that a doctor suggests, the church doesn't condemn it. So yeah, the Mormon system is a very good system to learn from. If you actually, I mean, it's a good system to get in on. If you're really, I mean to suggest it more. And actually, I mean to talk about the Mormon church more, not necessarily just because of my own past connection with it, but because there's some very interesting things. I mean, I can almost guarantee that in most of the situations that we talk about that are very large and world altering, the Mormon Church has, at least as I understand it, a pretty coherent plan for gathering its members together in the Missouri area, which they call New Zion, in the end times. And it would be a very tempting place for a lot of preppers to go, because it'd be pretty appealing to a lot of the super conservatives, and it would more or less be a farmsteader's paradise. So it'd be very interesting to see if preppers would end up joining in with what would almost be a state, a Mormon state, more or less, forming. That's pretty imaginative, but there's, I mean, that's sort of just a part of the zeitgeist there, that if the end times start happening, they're all going to congregate. And that's part of what the food storage is to get you by until the congregation happens, basically. But aside from that, if you're a lonely prepper and you got no one else to talk to or whatever, the Mormon Church is probably going to be one of your best bets for meeting people who can tell you who is doing that kind of thing in the church. Because, yeah, Cheryl, it is pretty interesting. I just would want to get more. I just want to make sure that the people who have told me about it weren't just having their own ideas about it, and make sure that it's actually part of the general, like I said, zeitgeist, sort of the general idea of what that is, more than just the things that I've heard from a select few people. But it is, yeah, sort of makes sense for a lot of the stuff that Mormons believe, and the fact that they have a pretty coherent idea of the end times. Mormons, as far as I understand it, if this is sort of just a general belief among the whole church, they believe in a tribulation period of 7 years. And that could be everything up to all-out nuclear war. That, I mean, I grew up believing that end times would involve all-out nuclear war. Yep, I know a lot of Mennonites. There's a lot of Mennonites around here. But I haven't heard their end times plans. Most of them are very quiet, very, very conservative. If they talk, they might talk about just Bible stuff, just Bible passages. But and I've dated into the Mennonite community, so I just never really talked to them about that kind of stuff. You definitely know a Mormon and don't realize it. But yeah, no, if you are a lonely prepper, and I mean to suggest this, they are a good group to join into. Not even just if you end up talking to anybody about prepping, but you just will have an amazing resource to access. Even if you're just looking to, I mean, so many people do just tap it, you know, purely for the free stuff or whatever. But you will have people who will bring you a casserole if there's a death in the family. You'll have people who will care to come check up on you just because they're actually church people who do that kind of stuff still. So it is a really good resource for people who are looking to have at least some kind of community that would be valuable in some of the situations we talk about. Yeah, Hooples, that is the case with the Mennonites around here. Yeah, Hooples, that is interesting with the lone wolf angle. Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be very interesting. That would almost be movie worthy to have like an old Vietnam veteran prepper who's just been sitting in a room with all of his MREs for like 3 decades, meeting like a young teen Mormon prepper and like breaking through his shell or something like that. Somebody email Netflix for me and get on that. Why don't you? It is true, Susan. Finding community is hard. Even if you're not a prepper. I mean, the internet in the modern age is supposed to connect people more, but it actually just allows you to isolate yourself easier. Uh, which I mean, that's not always true. You can use the things that we have as resources to. I mean, I've met a lot of people who I would regret not knowing just from doing this. So that's something that I could never have in the 90s, not without going to a big city and going to mutual interest groups or whatever. But yeah, like Hoople said, loneliness is loneliness and the lack of purpose, the lack of valid social interaction and the lack of personal purpose are two of the worst things that plague the Western society. Hello, Atypical Hustler. How are you doing? I'm good. Probably nothing savory, Hooples. I imagine you would harass convalescing patients, just play pranks on them. Virtually nice bunch. I feel like that might have been a play on words, but I'm not going to read into it too much right now. But a quad some fit. Is a quad a homeless person? Or is that a fourth year? Oh, quadriplegic. Okay. Man, that would be a tough life. Quadriplegic. Mm-hmm. Man. A lot of people have that sentiment, and I only don't say it because there are people who are doing it, and I'm sure that they would maybe not appreciate you suggesting that they should just be dead. But God, you would spend so much of all of your time and energy just doing the most basic of tasks. I mean, think about Stephen Hawking. It is a marvel that he was able to do the things that he was able to do. In all of history, anybody like him, A, would never have survived, and B, even just in modern times, the fact that he had the opportunity to have the medical intervention that he did to do the things he did. Pretty amazing. Oh, good night, Ryan. Have a good one, baby duty. Oh, well, maybe we'll see you again. That could be an all night kind of thing, couldn't it? Good luck, sir. Have a can't cope plan. Do you have a cyanide capsule inside of a tooth, Susan? Is that what a can't cope plan is? I'm sorry about that, hustlers. That's really sad. My father is going to be due for some heart surgery soon, so I have contemplated the mortality of man in advance of that, so I can appreciate the gravity of losing your father. I'm really happy that he lasted longer than they gave him, but I'm sorry to hear that. It is a very tough thing to go through. I understand. As for what Susan was saying and Hooples. Oh, wow, that's amazing, Susan. I'm 30 now, too, so I can drink to that. That's awesome. Oh, man. I'm so sorry about that, hustlers. I can't imagine that. That's got to be heart-wrenching. I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I can't imagine that I would be stable within a year of that. So my heart goes out to you, and I mean that. I believe it. I mean, if you are in the depth of that kind of illness, I have had severe depression before. So um, it's definitely enough to put a person the rest of the way out. Yeah, Hooples would know about that. No, that kind of emotional blow. I mean, more than emotional, that is an instinctive blow. We are we have the capacity to be mates for life, and so that kind of instinctive hormonal blow when you're in that kind of state is enough to do it. So I believe it. And that, oh, Susan, I think that anybody can do it. I think that can go any which way. Yeah, exactly. Like Hupel said, a lot of men don't have that strength all the way down. It's sort of a shell kind of thing. So they usually need, that they need a pillar too, basically, to a certain degree, whether or not they'll admit it. And in fact, if you can't admit it, it's going to hit you more whenever you're forced to admit it. But yeah, I feel for you, atypical hustlers. That's the kind of thing that I'm sure doesn't go away, but you just sort of continue to work towards a new normal for. So I wish you luck with that. And the only thing that I can really say is that prepping and, focusing on my lifestyle with a mind towards sustainable, progressive improvement and prepping has really helped me to have a positive mindset and keep away from depression, which is something that I've dealt with a lot in my life. So not trying to just plug emergency preparedness here, but it is a valid purpose to have for your life. It's instinctively gratifying, and it's something that you can do without worrying about it not being as important to you later, because there's always a good reason to be doing it. So unlike a lot of hobbies, it's not something that you necessarily will just toss by the wayside because it's no longer relevant. I think that would be we all need to prepare for. But nothing's more relevant. Is something that we all have to be prepared. And it's also relevant because I will. Okay. Because themselves the best chance. Okay. Interesting. I have good signal on my side, but interesting. Well, apparently I've lost video here. Okay, I did. Signal, but I'm continuing to get signal here. I do want. It's a brand new laptop, Hooples. I actually just got this Tuesday. It's not a very expensive one, but well, sorry to anybody to read. My internet provider might ping my service. All they have to stop you for a few milliseconds, and anything streaming like this is its stream. Vegan ice cream, just ice. Oh no, it's ice shards with almond milk whipped into it. Vegan websites. Exactly. Vegans don't want to let you go once they have you. Wouldn't vegan ice cream just be frozen refried beans as the native national Canadian pastime? Sorbets usually vegan. I saw any videos. Yep, definitely, it's true. A lot of good food is vegan. Okay. And not even touching anything that's geared towards not proteins that you want from a vegan diet, but you could get everything that you need.